Hey everyone, this is Peter Estes of ValleyCAD, and this is another Just a Thought Thursdays. So in today's video, what I'm going to be talking about is when to use weldments and when to use part files in an assembly. And this is a conversation that I've had multiple times with people that might have not fully understood weldments from the beginning, or they're self-taught in some ways. And I even had this conversation last week with one of my good friends who uses SOLIDWORKS all the time. And we were just trying to figure out, all right, when do I use a weldment and when do I not use it? And so I thought it'd be a great thing to touch on today. Feel free to leave comments on this video as well. I love hearing how other people are utilizing SOLIDWORKS in the sense of, all right, I got a weldment assembly, and because I call it a weldment assembly, I'm going to make an assembly file in SOLIDWORKS for it. But in reality, weldments should be made in a part file. And so I'm going to go into a little detail on why I use weldment part files over a assembly file in SOLIDWORKS. Okay, so let's hop over to it and let's see what we got going on. So looking at my SOLIDWORKS right here, I got a simple frame built up, and nothing too fancy about it. I started off in the very beginning here. I utilized a boss extrusion. It looks like a simple cube like this. I'm using this to give me my depth, my length, and also my height on this framework that I want to make. I talked about this on a prior Just a Thought Thursdays video. Also check out our other Tech Tip Tuesdays video, and I was talking about weldments and using reference planes instead of having to make 3D sketches. Okay, so in this application, I use the simple boss extrusion, and you could check out that video for how I utilize it and whatnot. All right, so let's roll this to the end here, and where I get a lot of questions in regards of when do I use a weldment and when do I use an assembly is I have, like, let's say scenario A, I have a company where we have to account for every single raw material, tubing or whatever material you have, for our purchasing department to know how much they need to purchase. And let's say the scenario, we came from a 2D drafting software such as like AutoCAD or DraftSight or something like that, and we didn't utilize this weldments function. We just drew each part in AutoCAD, and then we made those as blocks, and then with those blocks we put those into a master part file or AutoCAD drawing file and assembled it in there to make sure everything fit. Well, in SOLIDWORKS you could do that, but really you're better off using weldments. And where the other aspect that I look at is when you are done with your weldment, such as this one right here, how's this going to look to your assembly team? Are they going to be seeing each individual leg and foot on there, or are they going to see this as one complete structure? Well, they're going to see it as one complete structure. And so where you look at when utilizing weldments or an assembly is you think of, okay, what is this part file going to look like, or these parts going to look like in the lifespan that it has on my shop floor? And so part files and weldments and so forth are meant for your machine shop. And looking at weldments specifically, these are meant for your saw guys and your welding team. Okay, because all that they care about is, all right, how much of this material do I need to cut? What angle do I need to cut it? What type of material is it? And then that's who your saw person is having to do. And then you look at your welding team, what they do is they look at these individual components and see, all right, this goes here, this is how long this is, I should be looking for this piece here. Okay, good. Weld it all together to make one final part. Okay, and you'll hear the term such as like this is called a weldment assembly. And the reason why you'd hear something like that, notice I didn't say weldment assembly file, I just said this is a weldment assembly. The reason why you'd hear that is because technically these are multiple bodies or individual components in the real world, and it gets assembled into one major component. One other way to look at it is if I have components that are welded together and let's say one of those components breaks, okay? Like let's say for instance you have a sprocket and you weld a hub onto it. Well, let's say that hub shears off of that sprocket. Well, let's say that all the teeth on the sprocket got worn out. Are you, like the end user, are they just going to call and say, hey, I need this one sprocket? No, they're going to call and say, hey, this part file, let's say ABCD 60BA, I don't know, something like that, that part on my machine broke. And they're going to say, I need this part. So you as the manufacturer and supplier, you're not just going to send them a simple sprocket or a simple hub, because they're going to see that and go, it doesn't work. What the heck happened here? No, instead, you're going to take those two components, put them together in your factory, and weld them together as one part. And then with that, you're going to ship it off to the end user, okay? So that's where I draw the lines. I look at, okay, when I'm designing SOLIDWORKS, how's this really going to be in a real world application? Where's this going to, who's going to touch it? Who's not going to touch it? Who's going to touch it in this state of life? Who's going to touch it in the next state of life? And when I'm saying state of life, I mean in the actual physical part. Okay? So looking at this, I want to be able to specify my material that I have. When do I cut it? Where do I cut it? What type of material to cut? And that's all going to be going to my saw team. Okay? So looking at this, you'll say, all right, great, you got your weldment structure created. Okay, so I'm going to switch over to my drawing, which I already pre-made. So I switch over to the drawing, and you'll see this is why cutlass are amazing, or utilizing weldments, because it creates a cutlass. And you'll see here, this is all my information for this weldment structure. And this is all that my welding team needs to know about right now. As I look at this, and let's say I add dimensions onto it, so I'll say up here, smart dimension, or sorry, model items, and we'll say do it for those three views and say okay to that, sure. And you'll see that I don't have very many dimensions on here because I used an extrusion that I eventually deleted. But, you know, I'm adding dimensions on here to say, all right, from here to here, my inside is 23 inches. And my overall outside to outside, so that's 27, but my overall outside to outside is going to be 73 inches. Okay, so that's a really useful tool. This is, sorry, not a useful tool, but this is what your welding team cares about. They care about, hey, where do these components go? How do they look? And how do they fit with each other? Okay, now I'll get asked, well, all right, now I see that, but I need to show detail on, like, say, for instance, on this foot. I don't want to create a detail view and show that because part of my foot is underneath the square tubing. How do I go about that? Well, how I go about that is I would simply copy my first sheet. So let's say I copied sheet 1 again. Copy it, and I'll repaste it. And we'll say after selected sheet. So there it is. So I just copied my original. And as you notice, whenever you make more drawings or drawing sheets in a drawing file, your sheet count automatically updates. Okay, so that's a really useful tool. So let's say, as I was stating there, I want to show just this foot. Okay, so what I would do, I would simply select this view, and a really cool tool within SOLIDWORKS is if you select a view, and it has to be a primary view or a secondary view, it cannot be a detailed view of one of these three views. Okay. You have to select one of the given views that is not dependent on another view. Okay, so with this, if you look over in your properties, there's this thing that says select bodies. When I click on this, SOLIDWORKS allows me, it takes me back to the part file, and I can specify which body do I want to show in this sheet. And so on this one, I'll say, I want to show the foot. And I'll say okay to that. SOLIDWORKS now updates, and it shows, hey, just that foot. But you might be like, what about all these other views? Well, I'll just simply delete them, like so. And then I will just push these views out, like so. And then from there, you know, man, these views are really small. Way to go. Not a problem. I just simply come in here and say, I want this to be scale 1 to 5, updates the size of my feet, and I'll just reposition it here. I can even make it larger if I want to, but hopefully you get the idea on this. Now I have a detailed view of my foot. I could come in, put in whatever model item dimensions I want to do on each view and say okay to that, like so. Okay, so model view, it's a really useful tool. Granted, you got to come in, you got to massage it out a little bit, saying where you want where you want dimensions to be placed, or you might need to delete some dimensions. Okay, so really cool tool to quickly pop that in there. All right, and as you can see, some dimensions just show up in other places. Now you might be looking at this going, all right, Peter, great, you got this on there. Now I see all these items in my cut list. My guys on the shop floor are going to get confused by this. Not to worry. What I would do is I would simply come in and I would say hide items. So by clicking on that eyeball and you come through and you click on these numbers on the far left of your cut list table, and you can simply say hide those items. So this is item 3 on my main table, right? And it's whatever name that I gave it, that name there. Plate, it's 1/2 inch by 1 by 2. I need 8 of them, and the total length of cutting is 2 inches. Okay, so that's a really useful tool. Now, I was also asked, hey, if I do in a Weldment, what about parts that I transfer into my part file? Like, for instance, let's say my Weldment structure here also has a sheet metal part on it. Because, you know, going in line with what I was stating earlier, hey, yeah, Weldments are designed for taking multiple components that are welded to each other to make one single part. Well, that's not a problem in SOLIDWORKS. When you utilize tools such as sheet metal, SOLIDWORKS will automatically add a cut list to your sheet metal parts as well, even if I made a brand new part and said make this a sheet metal part. So prior to making this video, I made a sheet metal feature in this, okay? And let's see here, where'd that sheet metal body go? I'll bring that back in. There we go. So looking at my sheet metal body, SOLIDWORKS is going to automatically update my cut list, and it'll show, hey, there's a sheet metal body in here as well. And it all gets welded as one component. And I could simply come in and give it the name. My typical naming structure is I like to add an underscore letter after each body in my part file. What that does is it allows for what shows up on the bill of materials on my assembly. It'll show this name up here, JATT-WVA-001. Okay, so it shows that name. Now my welding and saw guys, they don't care about that final name. What they care about are the individual components. So I give it A, B, C, D, and these are subcomponents of my main part file. Okay, so now that we have that, I could simply come back into my drawing. You might be like, all right, great, you got that done. Now what do we do about that sheet metal part? I need to show it in a flat state or something. Okay, not a problem. So I'll simply copy this sheet again, and we could paste it. And I'll say after sheet again there. And this time I'm going to say I want to show the body again. So I'll simply click here, select bodies. Let's see here. Yeah, so you only select one view at a time. Select bodies, and the body that I want to show this time is that sheet metal body. Say OK to this. I'm going to go through and delete all these items again. Okay. The only reason why I copy is because I have the cut list still on here. Granted, I could totally delete this cut list and reinsert it if I want to. Okay. So with this, I'll simply take that, project it off to the right and up above, and also do an isometric projection. Cool. So with that, you might be going, all right, Peter, that's awesome. You got it formed state. I want to show it in a flat pattern. Okay, not a big deal. I'll simply select this view here, do Control C, then Control V. So I'm copying that view. And looking at this, you're like, all right, it's still not in a flat state. Okay, here's the reason why. I need to specify off of my primary view to make it into a flat state. So this is not a primary view. This is a projected view off of my left side view. And there it is right there, flat pattern. So instead of copying this one, I'll simply copy this one here. Repasting it, I'll say flat pattern. SOLIDWORKS is going to take it automatically and it will switch to flat pattern state for me. By doing that as well, if I switch back to my part file and I go to my configurations, SOLIDWORKS automatically added a default as machined configuration for me. Super cool, right? And then you see default as welded and default machined. Okay, so I think that is just phenomenal that SOLIDWORKS does that. And I can add as many sheet metal bodies as I want to this Weldment. And I can update it as I see fit on there. So I hope this kind of doesn't make it a little more murky watery like that. Like I hope that this can help you out in saying, okay, this is when you use Weldments, this is when you use Assemblies. Ultimately, if it's something that needs to get welded to each other and becomes one component, you should use SOLIDWORKS part file and you should use Weldment features in that. Weldments and sheet metal, okay? If it's something that gets bolted together, then yeah, I would make that as an assembly because those are individual components that get put together as a part files, okay? Part files make an assembly file, okay? So hopefully you guys got something out of this. Leave comments in the section of this video. Love seeing those. And also, how do you use Weldments? Do you use a different way of importing views into your drawing? Like granted, you could come over here to the right side and you can specify I want to put in view palette and so forth. And with that, I'll simply click refresh and I can import views from here as well. Okay, so simply coming over here, dropping that in. There's a primary view. Specify what body do I want out of this because it's a primary view, and I can say I want this one right here, and there we go. Okay, so do you import views that way? How do you use Weldments? I already asked it again, but I'll ask it again. How do you use Weldments? Do you use Weldments? Do you just find yourself being faster making assemblies? I would love to have feedback on that. All right, so hopefully you guys enjoyed this. This is Just a Thought Thursdays. My name is Peter Estes. I am the owner of Valley CAD. Love making these videos. If you got other ideas of videos or questions, feel free to shoot them our way. You can email me directly. It's peter.estes@valleycad.com. If you hop over to our website, www.valleycad.com, you'll actually see my email on that web page as well. You can email me directly on there, okay? And also, we are on Twitch, we are on Facebook, we are also on Instagram. Follow us, like us, subscribe. We are at Valley CAD, okay? Hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. Have a great rest of the day, and make sure you learn something new. See ya!